A randomizer is one of the most insane ways to play a Pokemon game. Your first Pokemon could be a legendary, or maybe just a Magikarp with Truon. Point is, everything is random, and with the hardcore Nuzlocke rule set ensuring that if any Pokemon faints, it's gone for good, it should actually be really difficult too. I found that out right away in my first attempt when I got a Frillish as my starter, and unfortunately, I only had Ghost type moves. This wouldn't have been bad if my opposing Pokemon wasn't a normal type, so one reset later and I get to pick a new starter. This time, my starter was Suicune, which should be a lot easier to use. Past that, I moved to the second route where Serena teaches me how to catch a Pokemon, and for some reason, Shauna's surprised that it went in the ball. It doesn't really make that much sense to me either, but Shauna's lived in the Pokemon universe her entire life. She should know this by now. Regardless, I go to catch a Pokemon and find a Rufflet, which doesn't evolve until like level 50. Throughout this run, there was a lot of Pokemon like this, and in the future, I won't be covering them since they really didn't do anything. Past that, I'm in Sandalwood Forest, where I find a Munchlax that I catch and name Juniper. This Munchlax has a root fossil, which is something I can use later on in Ambert Town. For now, me and my so-called friends move on to Route 3, and after pushing past them, I find a Lotad in the grass on Route 24. Lotad has a really early evolution, so I catch him and name him Spruce. From there, I rob this random kid in front of the gym, stealing his skates, then heading inside the gym to fight Viola, or I guess Schoolboy Mia. Sending in Dialga, I bring out Willow, my Suicune. Dialga can't do that much damage, so after a few Crab Hammers and Water Pledges, she goes down, and the final Pokemon is Jolted. All it takes is one Water type move to wash her away, winning me the first badge. Moving towards the second, I buy myself this really cool hat, and also find this Tyranitar in the grass. Unfortunately, I'm a little dumb and thought Tyranitar would survive a Water Pledge. I was wrong. Right after that fight, Lotad evolved into a Gothitelle, which is really good for this early game. Moving into Lumio City, I meet up with the tallest NPC I think I've ever seen, then I get into a fight with Professor Sycamore. Gothitelle makes quick work of him, and then he gives me the option at a starter Pokemon, and one of them is Mega Lucario. He looks a little silly doing a T-pose, but I don't care as it's a Mega Evolution. I give Lucario the nickname Pecan, then find out he has Moody, which is one of the best abilities in the game. Sycamore also gives me some Venusaurite, but I doubt that'll matter since there's no way we get a Venusaur too. Right? Wrong, because as soon as we make it to Route 5, we find this big guy, and as if my luck couldn't get any better, he has the ability Speed Boost. Sadly, this streak of luck takes a nasty turn in the future, but I don't gotta worry about that now, as I name my new Mon Birch and use him to fight Tierno. This guy should stick to being a dancer since Pokemon battles are clearly not for him. Past all that, I find myself in Perfum Palace, where I have to pay 1,000 Pokédollars just to get in this place. I then go ahead and watch the owner during this big freakout he has, which I kind of feel a little bad about. In the end, he gives me a Poke Flute after I save his Furfrou. Using this flute on a Snorlax gets me a Magikarp, and that sentence only makes sense in a randomizer. This Magikarp I decide to catch, and that maxes out my team's roster. A bit further on the route, I make quick work of my rivals, then head towards Ambert Town. I won't be able to figure out what was in my root fossil until after I go to Glittering Cave, so that's what I do next. This is where I get my first glimpse of Team Flare, or I guess Swimmer Donna? I don't know, those seem like opposites to me. Thankfully, their teams don't cause me any trouble, but on my way out of the cave, I encounter a Zekrom. Thankfully, I was able to run away, but that would have been really scary. I can now finally uncover that fossil, which ended up being a Galvantula, which is really cool. I'm not going to use him now since my team is already full, but I promise with the losses we experience later, we'll definitely have to. I give Galvantula the name Palm, and if you end up finding out what the nickname theme is, leave it in the comments down below, as I'll be liking every correct answer. Also, while you're down there, if you could leave a like, I'd really appreciate it since it helps out a lot with the YouTube algorithm. Once I make it to Silage City, I evolve my Magikarp into a Landorus. With how great my team is right now, I don't even need more evolutions before going to face Grant. At level 25, my Mega Lucario and his 1,000 waves are enough to take down the Metagross. Against Pidgeotto, I get hit by a Future Sight, which brings my Mega Lucario really low, so I decide to swap into Willow. With a Water Pledge, I can move on from that towards the third gym. On my way there, on Route 10, I find a Bastiodon and then a member of Team Flare, which I'm honestly more happy about than the Bastiodon. Since it's currently raining on the route, my Suicune does loads of damage, but against this Dialga, I know I probably won't do that much. Thankfully, my Landorus was able to take him down, but legendaries randomly appearing like this is really problematic, especially since I have no idea what moves they have. Past all that, I make it to Geosenge Town, where I chase this Team Flare member into the middle of nowhere. He straight up disappears right in front of me, and rather than questioning any of that, I just go fight Corinna. Her two Lucarios Latios are a Crocodile and Braviary, and like I mentioned earlier, the rain makes this battle extremely easy. Afterwards, my Munchlax finally evolves. This time it's into another legendary, and it's Raikou. Our team is currently stacked, and I go ahead and reflect on that in Reflection Cave. They should really think about changing that name though, since something like Legend Cave would be more appropriate. There wasn't 1 or 2 or even 3, there was 5 legendary or mythical Pokemon that I found here. Unfortunately, none of them were my first encounter, so all I could do is bury my face in my hands and walk into Shallower City. In the city, I get into a fight with my rival, and she has a Haxorus, which goes down to 2 Bone Meringues. Her next Pokemon was Wailord, so I swapped into my Venusaur and went for some magical leaves. It only took 2 of those and then 1 more to finish off the final Pokemon Baltoy, and with that, I can move on to the gym leader. Corinna's got a different team this time and sends out her Jinx, and I bring in my Raikou. With the Steam Eruption, I do about half as I then get hit by a Luster Purge that takes me down to 67 remaining. With another Steam Eruption, I can move on to the Ace Pokemon Basculin. 2 Tri-Attacks does the trick and leads into the final Pokemon, Weavile. Weavile survives a Steam Eruption and then hits me with an Avalanche that takes me all the way down to 4 HP. On the next turn, I thankfully outspeed and can finish off the Weavile with a Tri-Attack, but that was way too close for comfort. After the battle, she tells me to come to the top of this random tower, and I meet her there and she wants to battle again. This is where her Lucario transforms into a Mega Houndoom, and of course I'm gonna put this guy on my team. Currently, it sits in the box as I progress towards my next route, and on my way there, I get the HM for Serve. It's at this point in the game that I start to make some big mistakes with my team, and I was getting really cocky. Because my team is so strong, I started to go into these battles really underleveled, because I just assumed I'd win them all. In the future, this would end up haunting me, but that's not now, so I go into Coumarine City and get ready for my 4th gym. Ramos leads with Ralts as I send in Lucario and go for a Bullet Punch. This Okos and brings out the ace Pokemon Drifbloom, and after going for a Meteor Mash, I end up burning myself because of Drifbloom's Flame Body. Thanks to a String Shot, he's faster than me and can connect with a Heat Wave. Once the turn is over, we're both left in the red, and I tried to KO with a Bullet Punch, forgetting that Drifbloom is gonna heal. With my Lucario at 5 HP, it's time to switch, so I bring out Suicune to finish off the Drifbloom and the final Pokemon Spinarak. Leaving the gym, I meet up with this guy who says he met his Helioptile on Route 13, but this is a randomizer, so I don't believe him. The Pokemon I find there is a Spiritomb, so it's safe to say that guy is a big fat liar. Moving past those guys' fibs, I find the Team Flare Power Plant Pass and use it to get inside the power plant that they have fully taken over. Somehow. The battles in there really aren't hard, but for some reason, nobody believes in me. This random worker says that I'm just a kid. Little does he know, I have 3 legendaries and 2 megas, so after I beat Team Flare, I go back to him, and then he says, I knew you'd save us, so he's a liar too. Getting out of that place, I eventually find myself back in Lumio City. I'll be here for a brief amount of time, as the only thing to do here is fight the 5th gym leader, Clement. He leads with Froakie as I send in my Landorus, who's 2 levels lower than him. Even still, I outspeed in a Bone Meringue one-shots, and the exact same thing happens to the next Pokemon Spinarak. Against the Ace Ferrothorn, everything came crashing down for me as I was brought really low immediately after a gear grind. Since Ferrothorn is super tanky, has the move Synthesis to heal off any damage, and I'm incredibly underleveled, this makes him a really big threat. On every turn, I was either forced out because Ferrothorn was doing too much, or I was doing too little. This caused me to bring out my entire team until everything would come to a head at Raikou. I realized there was no way to bring this Ferrothorn down unless I made it less tanky. By mashing Tickle over and over again, I eventually got this big guy to let his guard down. Unfortunately, this cost me my Raikou, but it did give me a free switch into my Landorus, and after a Bone Meringue, I was finally able to earn my 5th badge. That was my first death of the run, and it's pretty clear it's because I was underleveled. For some reason though, I still thought I was invincible, so instead of going to level up, I put Galvantula on my team and went to battle my rival, Serena. Thankfully, I'm pretty sure even my team 10 levels ago could deal with her Wailord, since it kinda just sits there and absorbs a bunch of damage. On the next route, we find this spooky house, and the only thing that's scary about this place is the fact that they had the gall to ask for a tip after this terrible spooky story. I'll give you a tip, how about you find a different profession? Sorry, that was mean. Let me go cool off by fighting the gym leader in Laver City. Valerie leads with Shuckle as I send in my Landorus and go for a Bone Meringue. This does a little less than half, and since Shuckle has basically no offensive stats, I can can go for a few of those until she goes down. This brings out the ace Pokemon Lopunny, who starts with a Facade, doing about a fourth as I then go for a Bonemerang that does exactly half. After we repeat that set of moves, I'm onto the final Pokemon Heracross, and thankfully I have Fly, which is 4 times super effective. Sadly, I forgot my ability was No Guard, which means every single attack is gonna hit me. This allowed Heracross to give me a really bad scare, as by the end of the fight, my Landorus only had 17 HP. We got out of that one with no deaths, and by heading over to the Pokeball factory, we can watch Shauna and Trevor run away from these Team Flare members. As funny as that looked, we decided to help them out by fighting the rest of the members in the factory. In the end, we drove them away, and the owner offered me a Big Nugget or a Master Ball, and of course I picked the Big Nugget. Now we're off towards the Frost Cavern, where we've got even more Team Flare to deal with. While we're here, I ended up realizing I was 10 levels under Team Flare's Pokemon. Even at this huge disadvantage, I was still one-shotting, but unfortunately, this wouldn't be the case for much longer. Once I got into Anastar, I quickly took care of my rival and her team of 4 before heading into the gym to challenge the 7th gym leader, Olympia. She led with her Ditto as I brought out Pecan, my Lucario. With a single kick, Ditto got swapped out for the next Pokemon, Landorus. With Moody increasing my defense stat by 2 stages, I felt safe enough to go for a Meteor Mash. Landorus then missed a Bonemerang, and then one more move of mine brought me onto the final Pokemon, Snorlax. With my super effective double kicks, Olympia doesn't stand a chance, and with that, we can finish up the 7th gym battle and move on towards the latter half of the game. This takes me through a bunch of Team Flare, and the main threat there is definitely Lysandre. By heading back to Lumio City, I can go to this cafe, and for some reason, everybody wants me to leave? This random guy says the special is get out of here or else, and that doesn't sound like the name of a special. I probably should have listened to him though, because in my first battle with Lysandre, he led with Swampert, and I brought out my Lucario. I figured an easy way to deal with him would be to switch into Spruce and go for a Seed Flare, but unfortunately, I missed the Seed Flare. This allowed Swampert to get off 2 consecutive Crab Hammers, one to take me below half, and the other to KO. By bringing in Venusaur, I can go for a quad effective Magical Leaf, and that led to Charizard. Lysandre likely has a super effective move, so I swap into Willow to tank it. He outspeeds me as an Aeroblast leaves me with 32, and a Crab Hammer takes him into the red. Since I don't really feel like losing another Pokemon, I send in my Lucario and try to KO with a Meteor Mash. This was yet another mistake, as I ended up missing, and Charizard took me down with an Aeroblast. Since he's just run out of PP, I bring my Venusaur back in to finish him off. The final 2 Pokemon are Kricketune and Porygon Z, and thankfully I was able to defeat them with no further casualties. I'm pretty sure all of that could have been avoided had I just been a higher level. The current level cap is 59, which puts me at a major disadvantage when I'm only level 44. Losing my Moody Lucario forces me to put my head on straight and start leveling up my Pokemon like I should have been. With those 2 burning holes on my team, I try to replace them with this single Houndoom that I named Pecan V2. He was previously one of Corinna's Lucarios, so I guess this is fitting. The rest of Team Flare doesn't give me much trouble, especially since I can take naps every other battle, but they do make fun of me for that. In this one fight, I was up against this Heatran with Levitate, and that is a perfect combo. On top of that, it ended up bringing me down to 2 HP after going for an Endeavor. It's okay though, everything's fine. The next Pokemon won't be so hard. It's a Ho-Oh, never mind. We escape that battle by the skin of our teeth, then get the elevator key to move up to the 2nd floor. This is where we hear a long story about this guy, AZ. Hopefully this gets expanded upon in the new Legends games, as it's something I'm really excited for. I don't know if there's gonna be a way to Nuzlocke that game, so if you have any different ideas, let me know those in the comments. I'll make sure to respond to whatever I can. Regardless, this is where Team Flare sets off their ultimate weapon, and they blow up nearly every house in Geosenge Town. By going there, I can head to their secret hideout and get into another battle against Lysandre. Luckily, he doesn't keep the same team, and it's not nearly as threatening, and most of it can be dealt with by just my Landorus. With my Venusaur on cleanup duty, I head to the bottom of Team Flare's base and meet up with the legendary Baltoy. Darn it, I was really hoping it'd be something better. Still, I catch him, give him the name Scale, then get into my last fight with Lysandre. His lead Pokemon is a Mesprit, but thankfully my Landorus isn't phased. With an Attack Order and Draining Kiss combo, Mesprit gets swapped out for Wishcash. I move into my Venusaur, who has 4 times super effective Magical Leaf, and for whatever reason, he goes for a Fire Blast. Luckily, it doesn't do that much as I'm able to OHKO, and the following Pokemon is Cradali. He goes for Flamethrower, so I swap into Houndoom to do the same. Doubling up on that takes him down, and with one more, I can finish off the last Pokemon, Serperior. Lysandre has been defeated, which means Team Flare's done, and there's still a massive hole in Geosenge Town. That's not really my issue though, as I head to the next route and evolve my Baltoy into a Doublade. I then get into a battle with Professor Sycamore, who leads with Genesect, who has the move V-Create. Thankfully, my Houndoom stays on top and beats the rest of his team with ease. On Route 19, I find a Corphish that I catch and nickname Redwood. It's after this that I get into 3 consecutive rival battles, one against Shauna, the other against Tierno, and the last against Trevor. Luckily, their teams weren't that great, so they didn't put up much of a fight, but I still have a lot in this game to worry about, especially since the Elite Four and Final Gym are coming up soon. In the end, I probably should have been a bit more worried, especially since things didn't go well. Regardless, when I make it into the woods on Route 20, I find this Horde encounter that doesn't have anything I want. So I run away, and the first encounter I get after that is a Zygarde, which really would have been nice to have. The last Pokemon I caught was a Sylveon in the Pokemon Village, but I ended up leaving him in the box for the rest of the game. What do Pokemon even do in the box? I kind of feel bad about leaving Sylveon there. Anyways, it's time to fight Schoolboy Liliana, and he leads with his Gardevoir as I bring in my Landorus. A simple Bonemerang is able to crit and get an Oko, as the next Pokemon is Chestnut. Chestnut is not an issue. You see what I did there? Nah, but seriously, a Quad Effective Fly takes the one-shot, and the last Pokemon is Muck. I'm sure you can already assume what happened, but Bonemerang took an easy KO. After earning that final badge, I find this Abomasnow who says Barararo? That's not what he's supposed to say. He's clearly some sort of imposter, so I sprint away from him all the way to Victory Road. This is where I get into my last rival battle, and unfortunately, things don't go well. Serena's first 3 Pokemon were a piece of cake, but her 4th one was this Slowbro. Sticking in with Venusaur, I go for a Magical Leaf that does well over half, and then Slowbro pulls out a Psycho Boost. Even if I was at full HP, I don't think I stood a chance. Thankfully, Galvantula could clean up the rest of her team, including that super crappy Wailord she has. Even though we won, we lost a really strong Pokemon, so I have to find something to replace him with. I decided on this Corphish, which I evolved into a Wailord, and this is just poetic. Hopefully he's a little better for me than he was for Serena. For my last evolution, I use a Duskstone on Doublade to evolve him into a Primeape. Now, all that's left for me to do is get my team up to the level cap and prepare myself for what's gonna be a really difficult Elite Four. For my first Elite Four battle, I decided to go into the Blazing Chamber and fight what used to be Malva. She leads with Vivillon as I send in Houndoom and go for a Flamethrower that takes the one-shot. Next up is Furfrou, and after going for a pair of those, I'm able to take her down, and this brings in Superior. Superior tried to hit me with a Grass-type move, but thanks to my ability Sap Sipper, I don't take any damage. From there, I can go for an array of Fire-type moves to take him down and bring out the final Pokemon, Miltank. With a pair of Flamethrowers, I can move on to the Flood Chamber. Against Leader Max, I send out my Wailord and start by going for a Scald. This Scald doesn't do crazy damage, but since Gallade didn't attack me, I can go for a Waterfall on the next turn. This leaves him with a Sliver remaining and causes Seabolt to heal with a full restore. 2 Waterfalls after that lead me on to Durant, and Durant's 4 times weak to Fire-type moves, so I swap into Houndoom. Unfortunately, Durant has the move Mega Horn, and since my defense stat is terrible, Houndoom gets one-shotted. That ends up being another death that I wasn't expecting. Using Houndoom's Sacrifice, I swap into Landorus and start to go for Bonemerangs. Thankfully, Landorus is a pretty good counter, so he's able to take him down, and the final 2 Pokemon are Dark types, so Attack Order does the trick. The next battle is against Wickstrom in the Ironworks Chamber, and he leads with his Whimsicott, and I send in my Landorus. After a pair of Attack Orders, Whimsicott goes down, and the next Pokemon is Cavagrigus, so I start with the Bonemerang. Hitting twice, I do about half, then Cavagrigus hits me with a Bubble Beam that takes me down to 157. Another Bonemerang takes the KO and brings in the third Pokemon, Ambipom. Since I'm not particularly worried about what Ambipom can do, I stick around and go for a couple of attacks. 2 Attack Orders does the job, and the final Pokemon to come out is Muck. Unfortunately, I was hit by a Glare, which means I'm currently paralyzed, but as long as I get through the paralysis and hit a single Bonemerang, this Muck should be dealt with. He hits me with a Venoshock, bringing me down to 76, and thankfully, I get through the paralysis, taking down the Muck, and with that, I've defeated my 3rd Elite Four member. In this last battle, I go up against Drasna, and she leads with the legendary I was worried about, Manaphy. Manaphy is incredibly tanky, and it doesn't help that my Suicune doesn't have any super effective moves. That being said, after getting hit by a Blizzard, I swap into Scale. Scale gets off a couple of attacks, but none of them KO, so I swap into Galvantula to finish the job. Galvantula immediately takes a ton of damage from Blizzard, then I set up a Quiver Dance and survive a Lava Plume. This allows me to KO with a Bug Buzz and bring out the next Pokemon, Xerneas. Drasna's got a crazy team so far, and since I don't really have any good switches, I decide to go for a Bug Buzz and let my Galvantula go. With the free switch he provides, I swap into Landorus and go for a Bone Meringue. After one, Xerneas is left with a Sliver and gets healed by a full restore. Thankfully, the full restore isn't enough, as 2 more Bone Meringues can take her down, but this does leave me without any PP going into the last battle. Basculin and the following Pokemon Toxicroak are both taken down by Landorus, but I'm in a really tough position going into my final fight. This is against Champion Diantha, or Technician Mike for short. She leads with Avalugg as I start with Primeape and go for a Mach Punch. This is where I find out it's not actually an Avalugg and it's Beartic instead, but since Mach Punch is still super effective, I don't really care. She eventually heals with a full restore and after a few more fighting type moves is taken care of. Next out is Braviary, and for this I swap into Redwood and start going for some waterfalls. Wailord isn't that strong and takes a whole bunch of damage from Braviary. Eventually I do take her down, but not before I'm left with 73 HP remaining going into Heliolisk. This means I've got to go for another switch, this time into Landorus, who doesn't have any super effective moves. Thankfully it's not that big of an issue since Heliolisk doesn't do that much damage, but it does become a problem with Avalugg. I'm not really sure what Avalugg has, and to be safe I let my Landorus go in order to get a free switch into my Suicune. A 4-time super effective Icicle Crash brings down one of my longest living Pokemon, but with Suicune on the field I can take down the Avalugg with a single serve. This brings out the second to last Pokemon, Meloetta, and thankfully she doesn't have any good moves. She's incredibly tanky though, so it takes 7 consecutive serves and 1 more to OHKO the final Pokemon Nidoking, and with that I've defeated Diantha and won this run. Thank you all for watching, I really hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I'll see you guys in the next one.